Welcome to the CEO of Destiny podcast, where you will find the tools to fulfill the purpose of your generation and wildly succeed in the marketplace. And now your host, Andre J. Benjamin.
Take us a little bit more on your journey. How did you end up becoming to where you're currently at now? So you ended up, you get pulled in, you started to realize you took the accounting courses. You called them, is it the O-level exams?
O-level and then A-level. Yeah, A-level is, it's kind of like, it's you take that more of like the last 2 years of high school. And they're really tailored to get into universities in England. But to come into the United States, you take SATs. So I took my SATs and ended up in Seattle. Long story.
Why Seattle?
Because I have an American aunt, her name is Auntie Brenda, and she was married to my uncles from Zimbabwe, and her thing was like, don't go anywhere racist. So coming from Zimbabwe, the whole United States all sounds the same. New York, LA, Seattle. You don't understand how different places are. You don't know. So she told me like, hey, Seattle is a place where there's just enough diversity. It's not a huge city, but you still get a city feel, and it's a good economy, right? It's a good place. Maybe eventually you can land and live there one day. So she spoke prophetically, and my dad was like, yep, this is where you trusted her. So that's how we chose Seattle.
So how old were you when you came to Seattle?
I was 18.
18. So you take the SAT, you arrive at Seattle. What are you thinking what are your first impressions of the Pacific Northwest?
Wow, it's just, I feel like in the beginning, I was definitely overwhelmed by like the culture, just the speed of everything here. It's just life here just was so fast all of a sudden. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I actually grew up on a farm in Zimbabwe, so even slow.
You weren't even in the metropolitan. You were like everything is, cat. You're seeing the process of cattle being raised.
Yeah, exactly.
Seed time and harvest, and then over here, everybody's just
go. Yeah, it was really fast. It was just different. It was a colder culture. It was a thing where you felt you connected with people, but it wasn't like, in Zimbabwe, there's this thing where, and I know your wife has been there, where there's such a warm thing. You connect with people, you feel like a genuine, like, oh yeah, we're connected. Here it felt more transactional in nature. Connections felt more like, oh yeah, you get to connect with people, but it's a transactional thing, and it felt, and then I think for me, being like African, and then also connecting with African Americans, that wasn't easy. That was difficult, because I think with some African Americans, there was this like, oh, you're from Africa, so you're not really Black, because you didn't come from, you haven't struggled like our people did. I was like, well, you didn't either, so. Right. So I didn't really,
so many dynamics.
Yeah. And I had no place. I wasn't white. I wasn't actually Black. I was actually just African, right? I was actually my own thing, and trying to find it, coming from a place where you have so much identity, like in Zimbabwe, someone hears your last name, they know exactly where you're from.
Absolutely.
Like what your chief is, and so you walk in such identity and culture. Then when you come here, you're not, it's like in Zimbabwe, if I say Rusike, it means something. In Seattle, your last name doesn't even mean anything. And even my first name, it means nothing. Like, I'm just like another person. I'm just like, wow. So that's tough.
Powerful. So that you made I know you're an adult and you have a lot more time to think about these things at a deeper level, but then even as a young person, if you take us back to your mindset of how are you navigating then because you still have to go on and you have to get your education, and you have to, go to your schooling and figure out what's going to produce equities for you personally. So how did you navigate through that? And because we're going somewhere with this. This is not just the, kind of like skip through memory lane. What kind of mindset did you have to help you to deal with the difficulty of having to figure out? So we talk about, in some of the American experiences of Black Americans and African Americans is that like you just said, that nonsense of identity. I think identity it's a human value. We all need that. God have a place of belonging. Who are we from? Where are we from? What are we here to do? All that identity, destiny. calling. So how did you deal with discouragement when you are facing that? So we talk about being, having to be bidialectical, meaning that when you're with your peers, you're talking one way, and then sometimes you navigate into professional circles and you have to talk a different way. Or you were, in you came to American school when you were in college, but when I was we had levels when I was in high school, and so high school pulled the curtain back for me that there were like 5 schools in one. So we had the regular level, we had the English language learners, ELL, we had the ELL, we had the special ed, then we had the regular, then we had the honors, then we had the advanced placement. So we had like 5 schools in one, people going to the same building, but getting completely different experiences. So I couldn't talk the same way that I talked in my regular classes when a teacher put me in honors class. And everybody looked at me like they didn't understand what I was saying. So I'm like, oh wow, I gotta understand this dialect of you get what I'm saying? Yeah. What was your experience with that, learning how to be, multi-dialectical, and then also navigate, like you said, I had this peculiar place, as you described in your own words. I was neither Black in people's eyes, and I wasn't white, but then also I'm African, but to them, they don't really know what that means. Because so-called even being African, there's over 50 nations. So, it's not.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good question. And I think like, I feel like it was difficult. I was trying to assimilate, right? And I think part of it was like, okay, I ended up having multiple frames. Like my first Christmas, like I had this guy, he's a white guy, his name was Nick, and there was this whole thing in the beginning where it's like, because I'm from Africa, people kind of like were gravitating towards me, but it was kind of like, you could tell like it was more like to just because I'm very unique and different. But then it's like, but then there's some people who I just felt so super connected to, like this guy Nick, who was white. He took me to his house for Christmas, and he lived in Spokane. I'd never heard of Spokane. I didn't even know what Spokane was. I go there, and I'm just like, whoa, this place. This is like the whitest town I've ever been. I mean, Seattle was at least somewhat Asian and diverse, and Spokane was like totally different. And that's where I actually had my first kind of experience with racism that I can actually articulate. I'm sure I had it before and didn't really know, but like where they took him and again, he just never. I think I was his first Black friend, so he's never been around Black people. So he took me to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. You didn't know anything about Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Absolutely.
For some reason, like I heard later after I left that, there's a big KKK presence.
Absolutely.
And when we were there, I was, first of all, I couldn't ski like those guys were. We were in there for skiing. It's my 3rd month in the United States.
Yeah, you're like, well, I'm not a ski expert. You're taking me to the slopes. And he's doing what he thinks he knows. That's just like regular social stuff.
Regular stuff. Yeah, that's what we do. You can't ski. What's wrong with you? So I kind of stay more in the restaurant areas where people are kind of hanging out. And I just noticed I'm being followed the whole time. And I'm just like, why am I being followed the whole time? And I just remember, like, as we're leaving that trip, just being kind of like, wow, this sucks. Being like, it was like, there's nothing wrong with me. And I actually felt like threatened. Like, are they gonna try grab me? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, because I felt so like threatened.
Highlighted and observed and watched. Yeah. It wasn't like watched like a safety. It's watched like you're a threat.
I'm a threat. Yeah. And I felt threatened by that person just following me around, right? Like, what's gonna happen? And I couldn't find my friends. And eventually they came back. And I was just like, wow, this is, that was a tough experience, because that was my first kind of experience with dealing with racism. And then I remember coming back and.
So what would be out of curiosity, what would be the contrast in Zimbabwe? Because do people have drama based upon, is it tribalism, or like, you get what I'm saying? So what would be the comparative? Because if it's not like racism like America or whatever, what would be the the comparison. You get what I'm saying?
So there's definitely tribalism, right? So in Zimbabwe, there's two main tribes, the Shanas and the Debeles.
And even with Shanas and Debeles?
Shana and Debeles. I mean, there's the two main cultures. I guess within each culture, there's different tribes. And so in that, there's always been dissension between the two. The Debeles live more south of Zimbabwe, closer to the border with South Africa. So they're kind of more related to that end. And Shanas are more north. And Shanas have always been in charge, and even within the Shanas, there's all these like tribes and different subgroups within the Shanas that go against each other. And even now, with the way the politics work, it's very like, oh, so what tribe are you from? And then there's a lot of things.
So you're even going to show up in policy and politics and everything. So it's
sure.
I get okay. So you're back you're in Idaho. This is your first experience. You're like, I'm being watched. I'm being profiled. I'm being followed. I don't feel safe because they don't feel safe around me. So it's this almost like us against them. You get back with your friends. How do you process this? Because like I said, I'm trying to navigate with you through. How did you end up becoming who you are to this day, to where you're extremely productive and you are now connected with people, and you're an honorable person, and people honor you in the same way. Not to say that there's not still challenges and problems. I want to hit that though.
So I think for me, like processing that, I really like. I think it was humbling. I think because I felt like I just had to be more guarded, right? I just, and I can't be open to different people, but I just could understand a little bit more of the African-American experience. Because before I'm not saying like I get it, but that was like, because like for all these white people, when they see me and they see you, Andre, they're like, oh, he's just another Black American, right? So I could understand like at least that pain in terms of where that came from. And I think for me, like it was, where I always rested is that like, wow, but I am more worthy than this, right? I am more worthy than these people see me, because I had that growing up. I had that assurance from my parents. I had that assurance from my culture and my people. In Zimbabwe, you're raised by like not just your parents, like so many people around you. So I just
extended family. You have a community, family, for you to succeed.
Yeah. So I just felt like almost like you can always feel them rooting for you. And usually like in my early days when I was here, and I'm a big dreamer. God talks to me in dreams. At the time I didn't really know that he was, but like I would have dreams about my grandma who had passed away. And she was always like so reassuring and so loving. And I remember just having all these, she would just show up in all my dreams, and she was really representing Jesus.
Yeah.
But it was, so that always kind of like grounded me, and I wasn't really like walking like super closely with the Lord at the time. There was just always something I knew deep down inside, like, man, I'm good, no matter what's happening here.
So can you elaborate a little on, because I love the contrast. So can you elaborate a little on because you alluded to not being embraced as well by Black Americans, by African Americans. You weren't. What was that experience? Were people embracing you and being like, man, kind of like, welcome to the city, welcome to, you know what I mean? Welcome to the States.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do us a favor. If this was useful in any way for you, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Reviews will allow others to easily discover the podcast. If you'd like more information and to receive a free download, rediscover your destiny, go to ceoofdestiny.com. Thanks again, and tune in next time.